All right, Dennis, let's begin. There are already 1,400 people here. Thank you. Many have said they want to hear from Dennis, see him, and have him calmly explain what's happening. Let's start with what's most important to us, since there are many distant questions about oil and other topics. But we'll leave that for later. What's going on with Ukraine? What do you think? What's the situation there with the negotiations? You can see it better from there, from a country far from Ukraine.
Well, right before our stream, some important news came out. Well, important for some people, not for others. On March 20th, I wrote a post saying that there would be new conditions at the negotiating table, and our negotiating position would get worse. Why is everyone surprised? Why is it that today Zelensky announces that supposedly the Russians have set conditions? There are 2 months to make a deal. Otherwise, there will be different terms. This was to be expected, including because of the situation in Iran. Zelensky is under pressure from all sides. By the way, after we finish this stream, I will talk about this in detail for a whole hour separately. A very important podcast with the owner of a media outlet that published information from US intelligence intercepts about corrupt money from Ukraine, which sponsored the anti-Trump campaign. Zelensky was personally mentioned there, and in general, things are bad for Zelensky, but things are bad in Ukraine as well. You know, the last thing I can tell you is that people should pay attention. You and I did a stream, I think, 6 months ago, and then probably another one 6 months before that. In each of our streams, both yours and mine, we talk about how things keep getting worse. Now, every day in my feed, there are 20 or 30 videos where the territorial recruitment centers aren't just detaining someone. Shooting, fighting, civil clashes, these are elements of a civil unrest and war, and it's only going to get worse from here. And all this talk about fighting for another 2 or 3 years, for years, and so on. This simply leads to the destruction of Ukraine. So I assess Ukraine's situation as a very serious catastrophe that will lead to an apocalypse.
Subtitles. Well, yes, honestly, I also spoke about this yesterday. As for the civil war, I think it has already started in Odessa. I watched those videos. Some women, some people, they are being crushed, beaten. Well, I don't know.
And in Odessa, it's total lawlessness.
DSK, the occupation has already started. I think in Odessa, Russia hasn't come yet, but the occupation has already started. Unfortunately, so it turns out, look, you think these conditions are bad now, the next ones will be even worse. So why should Russia even enter negotiations? What do you think?
Well, because they have their own interests, they can declare victory, get all the sanctions lifted, and resume economic cooperation with the US. That's very important. Many people don't understand, they underestimate it. We're talking about almost trillions of dollars here. Of course, not 12, as Dmitriev said. I think not 12, but over the years, it's a huge amount of money. And now we see that some sanctions have been temporarily lifted from Russia, somewhere regarding oil, and some more sanctions will be lifted soon, but only selectively, and the Russian budget immediately goes up. That's why, in reality, sanctions are not beneficial to anyone, and Putin understands this perfectly well. And for Putin, it's not a situation where he can't declare victory, he can easily declare victory.
Yes, we can declare victory every day.
He will declare victory every day. No one expects anything different, and it can't be any other way. No one is going to announce a defeat.
But in general, about the negotiations, who do you think is to blame for their failure? Putin, Zelensky, who is at fault? Well, actually, I see the US as a mediator here. I don't want to say anything.
The US is just a mediator, and that's exactly what it is. Zelensky often forgets about that. If we phrase the question as to who is hindering peace negotiations today,
yes,
definitely Zelensky. Despite my dislike for Putin, I won't say that he really wants peace, but it's Zelensky who is disrupting the negotiations. As of today, Zelensky, because Putin speaks from a position of strength. There is a specific condition. Is it a bad condition? It's very bad. Will it get better? It won't. That's why I'm for compromise and for giving Ukraine a chance for the future. If we don't move forward, remember, each month of war causes hundreds of thousands to lose faith in Ukraine and want to leave. They will leave once they're allowed to. Key people are dying, especially on the front lines. This is already making Ukraine a banana republic.
It's already turned into one, in my opinion. It's already turning into one.
For the most part. Come on.
Where did they say that? I was in Africa. There's some endless war there. People walk the streets, but rockets aren't falling on anyone. Yeah, there's a figurative front line there, like Donbass, their own local one, but otherwise everyone just walks around. It's only like this here. I even watched what people are saying. World War III, where are the US? Where is Israel? Yeah, they bomb with rockets, but there's no campaign of destruction there like we have here. Everything there is being completely destroyed by the Russian Federation and constant shelling.
Sure, but none are at war with Russia. That's also an important point. The enemy, the opponent, that's also significant.
And tell me, please, what do you think in general? I'm curious. Maybe Trump, everyone expected him to put some pressure. Could he really put serious pressure on Zelensky? Well, we're not going to talk here about a final resolution of the issue and so on, which might be possible with the Iranian leaders. Well, are there any ways he can put pressure? Is there something he can do, or does he just not want to? What's the point? What's the problem for Trump? I still don't fully understand why he hasn't pulled out of all this. Let him pull out if he doesn't want all this to continue, or maybe he does want it. I just don't fully understand his position.
To pull out, that's an extreme measure. But the midterm elections are coming up. And if Trump now, well, I'll tell you what the situation was a month ago, maybe two. If Trump had publicly pressured Zelensky, like with a committee statement, he would have crushed him in 23 days. But then the Democrats, the whole world and part of the electorate, look, they'd say he took Putin's side. After all, the media, the way they present it, they're already saying that Trump is on Putin's side. You know very well that in reality, Trump is on the side of America's interests. And America's interest is to separate Putin from China. Well, that's a long chain of events, but now a different path has been chosen. What I told you about Donald Trump Jr.'s speech, that's already his second speech in the past week, that's all. Donald Trump Jr. says things that for one reason or another, Donald Trump Sr. can't say as president. Other people do what needs to be done more quietly, and Trump has a history of this. You know, when he starts putting pressure on you right away, basically he pushes and pushes, gets what he wants, and then backs off. When he drags things out, like with Maduro, who danced there for 2 months, just 2 weeks before the abduction, when he scares you for a long time, then eases the pressure, scares you again, and in between will definitely call you a good guy. In the end, expect trouble. So Zelensky, the more he drags out this time, the worse things will actually get for him. And here I want to immediately dispel a certain idea people have, which the media has already pushed on them for some reason. They said that Trump is losing the midterm elections, that the Republicans will definitely lose. Some interesting events will definitely happen in Hungary during the election of the Prime Minister in Hungary, because Orban is Trump's right hand in Eastern Europe. And about this, you asked about pressure. These buses with gold and money, with cash that were organized, that happened in Hungary, it's all one big chain. I understand it wasn't Orban who decided this on his own, it was coordinated. What Trump can't do, Orban does. There's more than enough material. The FBI has everything. It's just, you know, in these matters, it's all about politics. It's been there for a long time. Something is happening now, but they'll publish it. They'll do something. Some things they won't publish, and some things they'll publish when the time is right.
Don't take it the wrong way. Look, it's been a year, more than a year already. I feel like I've already lost hope inside myself about this. Well, you know, I'm already thinking about some external events. It's not like the US can decide anything here. I don't think they can solve anything. Or do you think, no, well, if they can't act tough, look, you did sports, you did business. If an issue gets resolved, it gets resolved. It doesn't drag on for years or anything like that. Well, that's how I see it.
When we're talking about easier issues, you have to understand that if it drags on for a year, like you said, then it's a really complicated issue. But don't say that the US can't put pressure. That's a very delicate point. If everything was, you have to understand that Kushner, Witkoff, they're businessmen. Trump is a businessman. And I think no one doubts the capabilities of the United States. If it hasn't happened in a year, then the game is really complicated. Just don't do it here. I want to talk about another category of people. They often say, yes, Zelensky outplayed them. Look, Zelensky crushed Trump there. Yes, Zelensky is a nobody. But there are some very serious people behind him, the people they're going after through USAID right now, which you and I are also involved with.
What kind of people, excuse me, for God's sake, what kind of people?
The Democratic Party, radical leftists, Soros, and Zelensky. It's just that there wasn't a situation where Zelensky was recruited like, this will be our agent in Ukraine, he'll destroy Ukraine for us. It wasn't that straightforward, it was more situational. He wasn't running on that slogan at all, as he believed. He was kept in the dark and had to go along with them in a certain situation. Then he broke away from them again about a year ago, and now he's with them again. These photos, remember, with Sternenko in the office, with Zaluzhny, with Pritula, these are all his followers. Soros.
Soros loyalists?
Soros loyalists.
Well, Zelensky's followers.
Yeah.
And who are the globalists anyway? Explain it to me.
Well, it's a group of people, let's call them that, very influential, who operate under the banner of globalism. It's like the absence of borders all over the world. Well, simply put, if I explain it, but I'm actually for the absence of borders myself. But, you know, with a passport, with a verified biography, preferably with fingerprints or retina scans, and when you get into a boat from the Tumbayumba tribe, and suddenly you end up in Spain, and then you start killing someone, raping and imposing your own rules there, Well, they knew it would be like that. But they bring them in. They bring in an electorate that way and destabilize the situation. Well, in short, there are also interests from the Middle East, particularly in Britain, where these lords are being bribed. But that's also a really global issue. Well, to put it briefly, that's how it sounds, but the conservatives have a different point of view.
Well, Europe, as I understand it, the majority holds this point of view, the globalist one, let's call it that. Yes, right now, yes.
Well,
not counting Hungary and Fico, if you set them aside, well...
Fico is a situational oddball. He's not a player. Fico is not a player. Orban is a player. Fico is not a player. Naroki is a player. That's why Poland, Hungary, and Italy are the three countries where this doesn't exist. Austria is a magnificent country where, well, there's something there just for show. In reality, it firmly stands its ground. And Finland, too, is still more or less holding its ground. But France, Spain, and Germany, it's an absolute nightmare there.
And what about, for example, Macron, or say the Prime Minister of England? Are they working for someone or what? Or are they on their own? Or are they already someone's appointees?
They're appointees too.
Do they gather there for their bloody ritual and choose them? No.
Not a bloody one, but it's just...
When people write things like that to me, I ask if they're serious. It's so interesting, right?
You know, I would...
People don't work, these black hats or some kind of white ones.
They finance certain companies. Well, look, even in the US, Soros finances elections. There's the electoral system. And prosecutors and judges, they finance prosecutors and judges. Here, in a certain state, a judge has to be elected. And then this judge will make decisions in favor of those nasty things that happened recently.
In favor of sodomites, basically, well...
Something like that?
Let's just call it culture, all that they're promoting. Well, honestly, I personally like that Trump pushed all that stuff aside. I mean, all those weird things, that's actually really good. Well, of course, it all died down. They shut up. Even here in Ukraine, they kind of quieted down. I think it's because they had already started glorifying all that stuff. And where is it all going? 99% of people don't accept this. Probably across the whole planet, if not more. That's just my opinion. Honestly, they themselves are like that. All these globalists, or whatever you want to call them, the Macrons and all the others, they're not really any different either.
Some of them are like that. I'm not judging anyone for their sexual orientation, and I'm not racist, so I don't dislike people for those reasons. Like some person from Africa, it's about the person, what they do, and it's the same with the community. You see, LGBT isn't about sex or the bedroom, it's about politics. And these people, they're a minority, but they're very active, very specific, and they're able to go out, you know, even in Europe, and you know what they do and what they're involved in. Climate, it's the same thing. Those climate activists who ruin paintings, idiots who paint historical fountains.
I noticed that too, since I've met people in my life starting in Odessa at the 7th kilometer and beyond. I've met Syrians, wonderful, intelligent, educated people who speak several languages. I don't know who's in Europe, which tribe they came from, or where they were taken from. It's a mystery to me because all the Syrians I've met are not like that. Absolutely. They are hardworking. Their faith, on the contrary, strengthens them, so to speak. In many ways, I don't know who went to Europe. Yes, what I'm saying is I don't want to offend anyone, but there shouldn't be any propaganda. That's all. And it's absurd, kind of absurd, that 99% of people in this world don't accept an opinion like mine. So it turns out, look, you let something slip a little in the sense that I also wanted to ask this question. Look, here's my opinion. Like I even said in the video. So Zelensky came to the White House back then, gave Trump a piece of his mind about all this, told them off, even cursed them out. By the way, I recall he was swearing there.
Of course.
Basically, he didn't get in trouble for that. Anyway, he ended up fooling Donald Trump. Well, that's how I see it. He told them, bye-bye, while all of them were shocked, so to speak, as I understood it. The others there, the Americans and the like, the French and everyone else, at that very moment. On the other hand, somehow with some kind of intuition, how he did it, I don't know. He made a deal with Putin, that's what I think. Somehow he reached a consensus with him. You have to agree, no one shoots at him, nothing happens to him. He goes somewhere to places where you're not supposed to be at all. All of that. So it turns out he outplayed everyone, fooled everyone, whether it's Zelensky or Putin or Trump, everyone, as he used to say.
About that category of people.
You don't think that's true? What exactly don't you agree with? I don't get it. He's been leading Trump by the nose for over a year now.
I already told you it's not about Zelensky, but those behind him.
Yeah, and Putin has been led by the nose even longer. I don't even know how many years it's been. At the beginning of the war, he said he wanted to do something with him, but then he changed his mind. Did he make a deal, or how did that happen? I get it with Trump, but how did he make a deal with Putin? What do you think? We're not Russian citizens, so we don't know everything.
Trump made a deal with Putin.
No, Zelensky, yes. Trump, oh God, no. So
What did he make a deal about?
he is alive and well. They bomb Odessa every day, but nothing happens to Zelensky. That's what I mean. They have some kind of arrangement with Putin.
There was such an arrangement. I don't know if it's still in effect now. I wasn't there to witness it myself.
In those offices. For myself, I just see the results. Sorry, let me speak for myself. Odessa is being shelled every day. At the same time, Zelensky is walking around there and laughing. He goes there, takes photos in those cities. Do you think he was really there on the front line? Well, yeah,
there was a photo shoot.
Yeah, whatever, who cares? Even if it was just for 5 minutes, he still went there. I mean, basically, with all the power Russia has in terms of missiles and everything else, they're not doing anything to him.
It's a bilateral agreement.
You see, they're not hitting, for example, Putin. Do you think he could get to Putin?
No, I'm saying it's a bilateral agreement, not to kill not only Putin and Zelensky, but also those who shouldn't be killed yet.
They're basically fighting each other, using other people as proxies, just the two of them.
Well, yes, of course.
They settled things between themselves, made an agreement, and that's it. Yes.
Well, that's how it is. It's not the first time this has happened, of course. But for us, you could say this is an existential war.
No, I watched it. Why? It's not the first time the US and Israel have targeted Iranian leaders. How do you feel? Do you think this is real? By the way, as for those strikes on Israel, the US is just not as close. I think they would have fired at the US too. They didn't even hesitate, but they started firing at Israel. Also, last time they had another conflict or escalation there. They killed some people, hit somewhere in Israel. They also hit there somehow. So it turns out that we're all trapped in this while they're fighting. Well,
exactly. That's it. The main point of the complaints is
they aren't taking risks themselves, but still send people out. And as you said, it's not even an existential war.
Well, you see, of course, it's not existential. You can see that a huge number of people believed in it. And some people, even on the front lines, don't think they're actually fighting. No, at the beginning, it really was an existential war, at least to some extent, like 90%. But since last summer, since 2022, definitely not. But some people still believe in great ideals. They don't consider it existential. They don't understand that it's just some guys sitting in offices planning out how everyone around them acts and they're all safe. But who even cares about you anymore, on one side or the other? Well, honestly, in Russia, at least for money, girlfriends say, go to the front and I'll handle things. Well, that's how it is. It's not... Well,
things are tough in Russia. Did they shut down the internet or what's happening? That's the last I heard.
That's a huge mistake. And even I
didn't understand that at all. Honestly, I have no idea what they're doing, but okay, that's their business. It doesn't really affect us anyway. Tell me, please. I was thinking about this myself too. It seems to me, in my opinion, that Donald Trump and Biden, when Biden was in office, things were better for Ukraine. First of all, he provided aid and he gave it for free, unlike all our so-called European friends. And besides that, even in terms of shelling and the war, things were calmer. Russia didn't shell as much or terrorize the cities as much and so on. Why do you think that happened at all? Well,
you're just twisting everything from how it really is. So did Trump say that, bomb Ukraine harder, or was it America?
No, but what's Trump got to do with it? I'm asking who is better for us, not that Trump said it's better for us. The point is...
only Trump is leading peace talks and wants to stop the bloodshed. He's the only one who can and will do it.
Biden was giving money?
He fueled this war. Biden allowed this war to happen. And this is one of the things I'll talk about today on my stream, where I'll show what Trump Jr. said. There's also the question that Biden allowed this war. And Biden, as the head of Obama's administration, allowed the annexation of Crimea and Donbass. And they were just shouting, don't shoot in Russian, because they wanted to lure Putin into a trap. So that everything that's happening now would happen. Like he annexed it, look, abandoned. That's why things started rolling the way they did. And today, Ukraine is drowning in blood. There you have the leftists, the globalists, that's what they've led to. And in Ukraine, those who were in charge just wanted money, give me money and let me stay in power. Do you really think Zelensky is respected by these globalist partners? They can't stand him. You won't find another person that crazy anywhere in the world. Who else is willing to sacrifice millions in Central Europe? Someone like Putin in his own country, though I see Russia as mostly Asian, not European, and now we face this situation.
Well, look, the only thing I mean is that, and if we had managed to win, if Biden had been there, maybe he would have given us tomahawks and we would have hit Russia. That's not serious.
To win at the nuclear festival.
Why? Well, why? It's just like, wait, well, Trump beat Maduro, right? That's his name, took him from Venezuela, and that's it. Or is something else still going on? I don't know.
Maduro didn't have the nuclear button. Yes.
It doesn't matter. The main thing is that there's no leadership, and that's it. If he'd given the missiles, he'd have been caught. Sorry, maybe you want to. It works, you know.
Why hasn't Putin been killed yet? I mean, after all this time, anyone?
You know, the security.
Because he has the nuclear button. Because if you attempt an assassination on a person like that, even just an attempt, there's a 70 to 80% chance that button could be pressed. And everyone in the intelligence services all over the world knows this. But when Maduro is just a fool who happens to have a lot of oil at home and so on and so forth, he got himself into trouble. But even that operation, it looks easy. You hit for an hour and it's over. They've got him. In reality, artificial intelligence was used there. Crazy planning. And maybe only 2 or 3 intelligence agencies or units in the world could pull that off. That's why...
Sorry, for God's sake, I have a friend. He's from Odessa. He's your subscriber. He asked me to ask you some question here. Can I ask it? Of course, you don't mind, because he says he watches you. And this... He writes, Dear Dennis, I'll read it out so that, let's say, yes, nothing gets twisted. Hey, dear Dennis, why do you always defend Trump? For example, when ICE does something, well, ICE is that green police, the one we were texting about, the enlistment offices or whatever it's called there. Well, something similar in my opinion. They act lawlessly. You say that Trump was set up. All your rhetoric is exactly the same as that of the supporters of Zelensky and Putin. The Tsar was set up. Well, that's the point. So he's comparing here, meaning that, as I understand it, you don't see anything wrong when something happens in the US.
So I realized on the streams...
I got it. I understood.
2 or 3 times on the streams, I talked about 2 mistakes, in my opinion, that Trump made. Apparently, my supporter missed those streams. I discussed ICE a while back and also mentioned it on Canadian radio. I said that the motivation for creating such a service is understandable and correct, but their actions crossed the line because it was led by someone named Christine Noem, a woman who really loved and still loves to look good, who would go out at 6 in the morning with muscular guys carrying rifles on raids, with her hair styled, nails done, wearing jeans and posing for photos. You see? So it was a PR thing. They needed to get positions. And then they started investigating her. She wanted a personal plane for her own use and everything else. People like that are everywhere. She wormed her way in there, and then she was in charge, and then that odd guy who was the head of ICE took over. But really, who usually heads such agencies anywhere in the world? It's always a bit much.
Today,
everyone understood, unfortunately. Now let's move on. Regarding the comparison with the TCK, it's an incorrect comparison. ICE deals with US citizens, ICE deals with foreigners, while the TCK is our own against our own. That's a big difference, a big difference. The second mistake is, again, in my opinion, but I don't have access to all the information. We don't know everything. That's exactly what we were discussing. Still, from the very beginning, they should have worked with Zelensky, at least the way they are now. But Trump's team initially had a strategy of a business approach, like, let's offer a business deal to Zelensky and Putin. Putin partially agreed, but Zelensky refused, saying, I don't need that business. War is my business. But Trump didn't guarantee him anything. You see, that's the thing. While the globalists guarantee him power and personal security assurances, Zelensky was refused to be given Yu-Gi-Oh!
I see, got it. Thank you very much for the answer, because my friend wrote to me about this yesterday and today, and he said, please write. About the radio, I don't know. Are you doing some broadcasts there also on the radio? Yes, separately for Nene.
It's a Canadian radio. They have an FM frequency in Canada and in the United States.
I watched it once. There was a woman and a man sitting together. I think, yes, that's it. Yeah, I watched it. I got it. Okay. So it turns out the hope is rather doubtful. Next, I'll ask some hopeless questions. What do you think if we imagine, let's say, Putin dies tomorrow? Something like that, after all, we're all going to die because we're all mortal. There's no escaping that. Do you think it would stop at all? Would the war end for us? Well, is there a way out? Any hope? Remember when everyone used to say Putin had cancer or was sick and would die soon, so things would change? Do you think it's worth waiting for that, or will nothing change in Russia? I see.
Will things change after Putin's death or after Putin leaves power? Definitely yes. But waiting for Putin's death is a ridiculously naive and laughable idea. I don't recommend anyone do that. It's just stupid, stupid. And people have been hooked on this idea, stupid, counting on some kind of illness. Stories about Putin, It's all just stupidity. About Russia breaking up into 20 parts, that's stupidity. Propaganda that, I repeat, a huge number of our people have been hooked on. This is not a serious conversation. If Americans just said, let's wait for Putin to die or Russia to collapse and meanwhile have a bite and get Crimea back. So here you don't even talk right away. The question is simply, what if it doesn't fall apart? What if he doesn't die? Then what? That's how serious people think. But here, yes, not everything happens either. They understand that it's just propaganda for idiots.
You just think it's propaganda, an element of propaganda. But you mean that if Putin leaves power or dies, I don't know what will happen to him. The power there is so centralized, focused on one person. And figuratively, if some other Ivan Ivanovich comes to power, will it be something different or will it be even worse? People have told me I just don't have any direct acquaintances from Russia. But those who have talked to Russians say that like Putin is good, he's kind. And when figuratively someone else arrives, like some other guy or whoever else they have, some other figures,
they'll mess things up.
And it'll be much worse. They'll start firing Oreshniks. That's propaganda too.
That's propaganda too. The next Russian president will be very different, and no one will repeat the mistake made with Putin. And in Putin's inner circle, there are people who understand everything perfectly. There have been, and so on and so forth. Look, Taras, in the comments, this question has come up repeatedly. It's kind of a question from the audience, several comments. I have to praise Trump so I won't get kicked out of the US. I want to reassure people. They won't kick me out of the US. That's the first thing. Second, I arrived in the US during Biden's presidency and have criticized him from the start, supporting Trump throughout the campaign. You see, that's the thing about Soviet idiots. They think that the law in America doesn't work just like it doesn't work in Ukraine or Russia. That's personal animosity towards me.
And you work for, what do you have there? Intelligence agencies, the CIA, the FBI, what do you have? Of course, you work for all of them at once. So how did they recruit you?
Tell me, are you a KGB agent?
Is that Yermak? They asked. I remember, do you work for someone, for Putin? He says, no, well, okay, let's move on to the next question. How about this? The candies you eat, are they tasty? Do you like them? That's how it is. Tears, you, Komarova, or like that guy who was asking Yermak questions, he says, no, well, yes. So that's it. Basically, no one will tell the truth. Understood. That was a joke, just in case. So what's next for us? To be honest, here's what I'm curious about, I don't really have anyone to ask this to. I would ask someone from the Russian Federation, but I don't even have any acquaintances like that. Honestly, what's the point? What's the goal? What does Putin want? I don't understand it myself. So like they say they're fighting some kind of regime, but at the same time, they actually protect that regime. They don't shoot at it. They shoot at cities. They shoot at people. That nightmare in Donbass, what's happening there? It's just scorched earth. Excuse me, I spoke with a woman. She's 88 years old. She still remembers that war. And she said it wasn't like this even under the Germans. She said the front line passed through there, they left, and the front passed through her area twice, and it wasn't like this. She said even the Germans didn't bother anyone like this, not at all. At the same time, we were always told that it was really bad there. Yes, there were crimes, and no one denies that. The previous regime was bad, but now it's worse. That's how I see it, and people who've experienced it agree. What's the point, in your opinion?
What's the point in it? Putin is trying to prove to the West that he's a player. And he was always very offended by the West when they didn't take him seriously at the beginning of his presidency. And now he has achieved certain economic results there. He's getting back at them. Moreover, he rubbed their noses in it, showing them how stupid they really are. In particular, in the European Union, the leaders of some European countries, they nurtured Putin, as I have repeatedly said. 330 billion euros for energy resources over the past 3 years. You understand? And then he started launching drones at them, which they couldn't shoot down, and they were already scared by 3 of Putin's wedding drones. That's how the KGB operates. They didn't plan or think it through. Do you know why, Taras? It's not because they're stupid. Many were bribed.
You see?
Many Europeans took money, both legal lobbying and illegal lobbying. They were just simply bought.
And so they end up being dependent on him. These days, of course, very much so.
And it was always like, all right then, or let's see, or let's wait. And then, for example, like Schroeder, where did he end up? On the board, on the supervisory board. That's how it works. And there are a lot of behind-the-scenes things, and you can't even imagine everything is involved there, from sports like football to who knows what else. It's a huge chain where it's just money, 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 money.
So basically, it turns out he takes money from them for resources and then gives that same money back to them as some kind of bribe. Well, simply put, let's say, well, probably even that money.
Parts and others. For example, the FSB mined a lot of cryptocurrency when this whole thing started, and obviously this cryptocurrency isn't accounted for anywhere. And basically, it's just a huge machine. And really, the Soviet KGB school, we can't say it's a weak school, it actually works, and now we have to take that into account.
Can you imagine?
The main mistake was letting a KGB man get that far. Intelligence agencies around the world let it happen and underestimated him. Just like the Russian oligarchs. As Berezovsky said, or was it Gusinsky? Yes, we thought Putin was a super democrat. He didn't show any ambitions at all. That's exactly how a KGB man operates. He's so inconspicuous, calm, saying he doesn't need much. And then suddenly, boom, and now he's bombing half the world.
So you think he was simply underestimated?
Well, of course. And then he started bribing.
What does he want from us? What does he want from Ukraine?
Well, you know how he understands history. According to his history lessons, he understands history in his own way. Secondly, he's imbued with this ideology. He really believes that Ukraine is a part of Russia. That's the first motive. The second motive, which I mentioned, is about being together with the West.
But why, if he thinks we're one people, why is he killing so many people? That's what I don't understand.
That's how Russians have always fought.
I tried to ask my, as you say, pro-Russian friends about this on air, but they can't give me any real answer on this topic. Well, I also...
Russia has always fought like this.
Yes, so they don't care about losses, neither on their side nor on the other side.
Well, yeah, and plus, in a way, it's a kind of revenge. Medvedchuk convinced Putin that in Kharkiv and Odessa, they would definitely be greeted with flowers, and also in some other cities, in Kherson and Zaporizhia, they would be greeted with flowers. Thank you, liberators. We'd been waiting for you so long, almost in Kiev too, but it didn't quite turn out that way.
And notice, honestly, they'll say I'm for Russia, that I'm praising Putin, but look, Putin, notice, he never abandons any of his accomplices, I don't know, allies, comrades, he never betrays any of them, just notice that. He took Medvedchuk, I don't know why he needs him, and then he took someone else, that guy from Syria. Yeah, I'm right, he took our Yanukovych, yes, our beloved Yanukovych, when he was with Lukashenko. Remember, before the war, they had all that going on, some kind of revolution and so on, that kind of thing. Remember, he pulled out Batka, saved him, it turns out. They say he gave money, and there were some, I don't know, troops there, I won't lie, that country too. So Putin doesn't abandon his allies, or do you think he has his own ideas about things? Well,
I think he was even partially involved in all of this. The FSB personally took part to put Lukashenko in a difficult position where he wouldn't be able to resist. Because many believe Lukashenko truly admires Russia.
No, not at all.
He tried to stick to his own path based on his own worldview and understanding of life, which led him to this situation. But there's another piece of news now. The keys to Belarus after Lukashenko, since this is definitely his last term, are up for grabs. And Russia will still have to work hard to get those keys. And Lukashenko will come to America soon.
Will Tikhanovskaya be in Mar-a-Lago or something?
No.
No, it's strange, especially her husband. That's really weird. I have a theory that Lukashenko released her husband on purpose, just to disgrace him. Well,
of course, quite possible. He was there too.
Probably knew his mental abilities and let him go. And he says, look, what a wonderful person, walking around like this, looking perfectly normal in a jacket, saying something, telling stories, traveling through villages, just like he loves to do. I noticed, and he said he let someone like that out from there, well, probably even in my eyes. Lukashenko actually seems better, smarter, and more reasonable than the one running around, checking his watch and collecting or finding money for himself.
I think that was partly the motivation too, but believe me, you know, people always confuse the USA with the USA. What you're saying about Tikhanovskis, that's the USA, and that's negative selection. Look at the faces of the USA in Ukraine. Timofey, Milovanov, well, all of them. The same Sviridenko, Sternenko, Pritula. Do you think this was some kind of selection from among serious people?
Or negative? Maybe this was some kind of negative selection.
Negative selection? Of course, you need a certain psychological type there and people who are literally ready for anything. And there are a few more points.
And tell me, please, Dennis, well, for me personally, what upsets me about all this? Look, it turns out the United States came to Ukraine. I'm not going to talk about who was president there. I don't care. And we ended up in the same mess. Sorry, I'll say it as it is, because that's how I personally see it. Look, it was like this. They came here, played around a bit like in Afghanistan, and now they've run away. Well, that's how I see it.
Wait, I don't understand. How did the US come to Ukraine?
Well, through all these people, like you said, Pritul and all the others, they stirred everything up.
You say it is not the US, you say it is not the US?
Well.
It's a certain clan.
What's the point for me personally as a citizen of Ukraine? It turns out we were friends with the US. How does that work for me? Biden was always coming over, shaking hands with Zelensky. Before that, Zelensky went there when Trump was still president. Zelensky is our eternal president. Before that, there was Poroshenko and so on. Yeah, so we had good relations with them and bad ones with Russia. So, in a way, I think we got screwed by this friendship with the US. They ditched us. That's why I was talking to you about the former US president. They kept helping until Trump said, forget it, we're done helping, let's sign. Then we're not signing anything. So they ditched us and handed everything over to Russia, and now they're killing us here.
You have 1 million subscribers. You just, don't have the right to tell people such primitive things, infecting them with such primitive thinking.
I got this idea from Hennedy Balashov. I'll be honest. Thank you. He was talking to some American, and he said it more harshly. I'm saying it in a more polite way.
I'm not going to discuss it now. I know Hennedy's situation in recent years, but he's no longer alive.
No, we're not discussing him. On the contrary, just a couple of words about Hennedy Balashov. I respect him. I respected him. I voted for him. I have a positive attitude towards him when he was alive. My God.
Me too.
To answer your question, thank you.
We have an audience. We need to explain things to people, not push them into primitive thinking. So let me explain. USAID is an organization led by people connected to Soros, which, including through fraudulent means, as I'll talk about on the stream today, according to what Trump Jr. says, US intelligence documented everything about how they operated in Ukraine. Here's what needs to be said. It's not America itself. It's not like there's just one person sitting in America making all the decisions, and that's why America is so bad. It's certain people who are present here, taking advantage of the system and huge amounts of money. We need to explain this. We shouldn't call this America. America today and under Biden are two different places.
So does that mean it's somehow unstable? No, it's actually stable. It's more stable than anyone else. On the contrary, more stable than anyone. It turns out that's because Putin is always the same. He likes Lukashenko or whoever he likes, whoever his friends are, like our Medvedchuk, and that's it. But in America, there's a new president every term, and we ended up in a tough spot.
I already told you, it depends on what message you want to send to people.
No, I don't want to send any message. Well, how?
You say there's the US, here is Russia. If for you, Russia is stable, yes, it's stable. A stable dictatorship that suits some people, definitely. It's a stable dictatorship with stable rules. No talk about politics. You can even do some kind of business there, but don't get involved in politics at all. And basically, you can somehow exist. As long as you don't end up in the wrong place at the wrong time, that's the only exception. But in general, you can exist. But in Ukraine right now, there's a dictatorship without any rules at all. For example, Lukashenko has his own rules, but that's a socialist state, so that's that. We need to explain that things are complicated, not simple. If we focus only on stability, we could become like North Korea, which is very stable.
I think it was Putin who went there and took note of those things, like shutting off the internet. He visited, and then they started shutting down the internet in Russia.
I get the impression that with decisions like these, someone inside the KGB is already working against Putin. Because even from Putin's own philosophy, as I understand it, this is a huge mistake.
All right, that's what they say about the Russian Federation. So friends, today you're going to have a stream. Yes?
Yes?
Yes, I put up the QR code for Dennis's channel for everyone. If someone isn't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. It's also in the description. Make sure to check out this channel and subscribe. But there will be some secrets. I won't even ask about them on purpose so that there's still some intrigue left. And so that you go over to Dennis and watch as well, because I think it will be interesting. I'll definitely be watching too, so make sure to subscribe. Thank you very much, Dennis. I just wanted to understand from the perspective of someone living in the US how everything actually happens next. Look, I have a question. Are you okay on time? Yes.
Yes.
You have, but there are still many questions. Do you have time?
Yes, I have time.
Yes. Just if you're in a hurry, say so. Don't be shy. We'll cut it short next time or reschedule. Look, what's the point of these 90 billion? I was watching today, there was a statement. Well, you know what I'm talking about, right? The ones they were supposed to give, but our friend Orban cut it off. Thanks a lot for that. And today, Kaja Kallas already spoke. She used to say everything would be fine, but now she says things will be bad and they might not even give it. By now, I've already imagined the worst case scenarios for myself, a total collapse. What do you think will happen if they don't give this money?
Thank you. You see, they might not give the 90 billion like Kaja Kallas said, but they might give less or find some other way. Tariffs, whether they give 30 billion, 90 billion or nothing, it will all eventually lead to the same thing: the collapse of the state, very bad decisions, and a worsening negotiating position. When there are fewer people, fewer territories, that's all. The patient is dead, and whether you bring him a bigger or smaller oxygen tank, he will die. In the end, as soon as you disconnect it, Ukraine is bankrupt. And when Zelensky talks about how we can now protect other countries, how we're already a powerful geopolitical player, it's laughable. You can't make such statements with nothing to your name when you're talking about a country, you understand?
It's absurd.
You see, I'm speaking now, I'm supporting Viktor Orban right now, but I don't live in Hungary. I don't have to judge him by the same criteria as if I were voting for him in Ukraine. But I definitely don't need his competitor. I would support someone else. But who is his competitor? Someone will immediately bend to someone like Kaja Kallas or Ursula, and there will be another friend of Zelensky in a neighboring country. Why is this necessary? One person showed mobilization to the whole world. A world leader. One person says, who are you? Zelensky stopped those buses with cash, you see. And I'm supposed to be against him so they can put in a friend of Zelensky or Zelensky himself, you see. If Zelensky was leading the country towards something good, I would come to you right now and only praise him. It would be better for me. I wouldn't have left. So what's the whole point? If they let me live and do business peacefully, there would be no problems and freedom of speech. But he took all that away, you see, and plunged the country into darkness and blatantly, stubbornly denies it. That's it, along with his gang of bandits.
I see, but you still didn't really answer. Do you think that even if they don't get them now, they'll find a way to twist things and keep the war going?
If so, look, if there are no agreements, right now Trump hasn't put any pressure on the European Union. When they just quietly start sabotaging Zelensky and say, well, that's it, there's no money, then I think, yes, they'll allocate some smaller amount of money and then a bit more, and they'll keep him on that drip. If such an agreement exists and they lack that information, Zelensky is finished on all fronts. Even his own partners have betrayed him. As we discussed, these European war hawks. And I can tell you, right now, it's very beneficial for Europe to do this because Europe is in a dire state. It's actually better for them not to quarrel with Trump right now. And Trump also has leverage now, including NATO.
You get the idea. Dear friends, I have a big request for you. Please give the stream a thumbs up. Dennis always says on his broadcasts, I watch him, that you need to give a thumbs up. It promotes the stream. Please do it. Look, Dennis, what else did I want to discuss? This is an interesting question. Many viewers have asked me, but I haven't addressed it yet. What's going on with Iran anyway? Where is this heading? Why did Trump start this military operation there and so on?
So, you see, everything could end tomorrow with complete peace, or it could end with a US ground operation. And this is also Trump's style, which many people don't understand, and you never know what to expect from him. I'm more inclined to think it will be a ground operation because, well, the way Iran handles things, it should end that way. Regarding the goal of the operation, the goal is to deprive Russia and, most importantly, China of resources. Let's put it this way. First and foremost, China. Iran supplied cheap oil to China. That's good. The main geopolitical enemy of the entire free world is the #1 target. That's the goal.
Wait, sorry. Who is the main enemy, China or Iran?
China.
Oh, China, yeah.
China. Iran is also an enemy but lacks China's resources.
Sorry that I translated that.
So it coincided with Israel's goals. Iran actually dreams of destroying not Netanyahu personally, but all of Israel. There's a big difference here, so Israel acts proactively as much as it can within its capabilities. This goal aligned, so they teamed up with the US to carry out this strike, targeting and destroying the leadership, as you noted, not just random people, but specifically the leadership.
That's all.
This process continues as infrastructure keeps being bombed.
And what do you think all this will lead to? Globally, will there be a third world war? Will there be some kind of...
It's already happening. The Third World War is underway in Ukraine. This war is hybrid, unlike the First and Second Wars. You can't judge it by traditional fronts.
These fronts are happening like it was in the first attack?
It flared up here, it flared up there. There's a hybrid war and cyber attacks. It's not everyone fighting everyone at once like in World War II. It's already happening. About the ordinary.
Look, let me recall, many viewers write to me. I'm bringing up their questions. This is simply about seizing oil fields and taking them over. And the US is once again taking oil there, taking resources. Others are right.
To take resources from China, from people who want to bring everything under dictatorship, to destroy the free world, to put it in the hands of the free world. That's exactly how it works. It's either in the hands of the good guys or in the hands of the bad guys. Someone with a gun protects people and someone shoots them, but someone always has a gun in their hands. That's how it works. That's how the world is. And people who live in their own matrix need to accept that. But most likely, that's one thing. The issue is something else. Some people who live under a dictatorship themselves, for example, Russians, they dream that the whole world would march in formation. When they see a free person like me, it really bothers them. And some people in Ukraine, they want everyone to quickly fall in line, shut up, and be like everyone else. So Russians dream that Iran shouldn't be touched, and they ask, why is Iran not allowed to have nuclear weapons, but Israel is? That's another argument they make.
Nuclear weapons were one of the reasons for the war, right? They were searching for them, weren't they?
Iran's nuclear program, which was rapidly moving forward.
So did they build a bomb or have they already? I don't get it.
They've practically made one.
And what would they do with it? Nobody is shooting.
They would have hit Israel.
Do you believe that?
Of course, since their official policy openly says we need to destroy, to wipe Israel off the face of the earth, it's open, it's not hidden. There were some guesses. They even set a timer with hours counting down to the moment when they would strike Israel.
I saw a video where someone flies a Boeing plane and shoots down fighter jets with an assault rifle. They're really something over there. They love artificial intelligence. That's everything for you, but not for everyone. I've already figured that out from talking to some of them. They love beautiful effects, making special effects like that.
Yes.
So what do you think about this special operation? Will there be a ground operation or is it unclear?
Look, my personal opinion is that I'm about 80% sure that yes, I was 90% sure a week ago. Today it's 80%, but I still think it will happen.
What's the issue with Trump? Isn't it the same place? They killed one guy, then another. I didn't really follow it closely. I'm more concerned about Ukraine than what's going on in Iran. No offense intended. But what's the point? First they killed this one, then that one. Can they not negotiate, or is there some line? What's the purpose of it all?
Look, the goal was to destroy this IRGC structure, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. And when Khamenei, their leader, was killed, they appointed a second one, then the second was killed, then the third was killed. Now their son has been badly wounded there. But the structure turned out to be so powerful and resilient that it didn't collapse. It has problems, it operates underground, but still, it functions like the Communist Party.
Something figurative, something like that.
Yeah, just with more forceful methods.
And even if you kill the figurative general secretary, eliminate someone there, they'll just replace him with someone else. And it doesn't solve anything, even if you kill all of them, all 20. There, I did it. Israel, someone published that a lot of them were killed. Leaders. And it still doesn't affect anything. It turns out it's not like here or in the Russian Federation where everything depends on one person.
But it's a different structure, a different type, a different philosophy, a different religion. Everything is different. Look, Taras, it's such a stable political structure. Iran has 27 underground cities. That's the difficulty. Just like in the Gaza Strip. You see, these are underground cities. This is serious.
Well, they're hidden away in those mountains, right? In the mountains?
You can't do anything with them unless you launch a ground operation, which means infantry and likely heavy casualties. That's why Israel struggled there so long. Israel isn't like Zelensky or Putin. Another 100,000, yes, and another 200, yes. Women will have more children.
Israel has a different approach. They don't have enough population for such operations.
Even if they did, they wouldn't throw people like that. In America, with 350 million people, no one is thrown. They're just sent elsewhere.
We're now waiting to see what Donald Trump decides, since it's all up to him.
Based on a huge amount of information.
And they could just step back now, say peace, friendship, calm down and leave.
They can now reach an agreement with the head of the Iranian parliament on cooperation and on some other terms, very serious terms, ones that would benefit Israel. And yes, basically,
it's very difficult for them to cooperate. As I understand it, there's some kind of religious leadership there, and their leadership is divided. Yes, in Iran,
they have a very complex system.
They have a system that's hard for us to understand. We have a president and an established order.
Taras is everywhere, in Ukraine, in Russia, and in Iran. If the people themselves don't rise up, don't support what's happening at that moment, then outside forces definitely won't do more than the people themselves. Well, in rare cases they will, but in most cases, no. If the people of Iran rose up today, it's easy to say, but hard to do under rockets. But if this somehow turned into more civil actions, then of course no one would hold back. Guaranteed, then this force wouldn't be able to hold on. But I also understand the people, they came out, they killed 40,000, no problem. They just killed 40,000 protesters. Those they didn't kill or shoot, they hanged a wrestler, that's it, that's how it works. Iran? Well, many people in the post-Soviet space like this.
What do you think? A lot of people support Iran, right? Naturally here,
Russians definitely all support it. Iranian drones are flying at them, and they say, why get involved with Iran? It's a good country.
well, me too. My opinion is why get involved there. I didn't really understand until the end, but you explained it. Thank you. I got it. As for China, all that stuff, I just feel sorry for the people. That's how I feel about it.
Am I against the people of Iran? Look, Netanyahu himself says, I'm not against the people of Iran. We have nothing against them. The issue isn't with the people of Iran, and Trump isn't against the people of Iran either.
Putin says that too. Putin says that too. That's their favorite phrase.
You're always bringing up something about Putin, about Russia, about everyone else. If there's lawlessness in Ukraine, lawlessness doesn't work like that in America. But the countries are different because everything is set up differently in them. Some are successful, others are not. If you meet a fool in life, you know that you're the fool. In the same way, that's how a country is too.
You know, that's an interesting question. All right, thank you so much. Here's what I wanted to discuss. I saw Minister of Economy Marchenko speaking in the Verkhovna Rada. That guy's a real scoundrel. He was talking about what I remembered him for before the war. I've been making these videos about sole proprietors and so on for over 10 years. He was talking about this even before the war. He says that all Ukrainians need to be checked to see where they got their money. So, since 1995, where did you buy it? If we're not of that age, then our parents, roughly speaking, bought an apartment in, say, 1996. So why isn't there a certificate of income? Well, I mean, he was telling some kind of absurd story like you. But it's one thing when some idiot says it, and here it's a whole minister saying it, and he said that's what needs to be done. He said he wants to the final solution to the question of sole proprietors. He said this directly in the Verkhovna Rada. As someone who knows a bit of history, this is just something else. Adolf Hitler talked about the final solution, only he said it about the Jews. Do you know this phrase? Well, of course.
Of course.
Well, when I heard that, I thought, damn. He says that this issue needs to be finally resolved with them. And so to speak, we're moving on to our third section, right? About the economy. What do you think about all these laws regarding? I know your videos, I've watched them, so I kind of understand your position. About introducing VAT for private entrepreneurs, all these packages, whether it's 150 euros or not, I kind of take it calmly. But the main thing is the introduction of this VAT for private entrepreneurs. What is it for? What will it lead to? You work there, so you know this better than I do.
How can I tell you right away? You're wrong to dismiss the issue of packages so calmly. You shouldn't be indifferent when your rights are being infringed upon, whether it's things or packages. This is a very important issue. And this isn't about the success of the state. It's about large corporations lobbying for the destruction of smaller merchants who import goods in small batches, sell them, and compete with them. A large chain of shoe stores wants to be a monopolist in this situation and in other areas, just like in other niches. And this is nothing but a crime. It doesn't work like that in America. Only now, with Trump responding to the trade war with China, things have changed a little. In America, you could order anything you wanted duty-free up to $700. In the richest country, there's no duty, but in the poorest, you have to pay someone. Now, the VAT on sole proprietors is absurd, in my opinion. Many people went to the front, among other things, to defend their right to this kind of tax system. The simplified tax is a system without VAT, where you can take off, start a business, make money. If it disappears if there is VAT, that's it. There's no longer any motivation for a person to endure this judicial and political nightmare. At least there used to be this incentive. If you take that away, anyone will go to Poland and think, I'll pay VAT as a sole proprietor in Poland, I'll pay VAT as a sole proprietor in Hungary, or in any other European country. But there's a fair court, there's purchasing power, there's lending, there's civilization, and so on and so forth. This is a crime no matter who wants it, even the IMF. It's not in Ukraine's citizens' interests. If those in power don't represent us, they should just leave. To hell with them. We need elections and to elect other people ourselves. After all, the main power belongs to those who understand what to do if this happens. Well, let's take a look at entrepreneurs. I'm sure they won't even make a sound, not even a peep. And unfortunately, I have to tell you,
It's tricky for me here, really. Zelensky acted from the start. You'll say again that I'm praising him, but he let people leave the country little by little. If it were fair, all the borders would have been closed. I'm sure that with those first shady incidents involving the military enlistment office, which happened at the very beginning, I remember in Odessa, someone was grabbing someone, the TCC, there would have been a really strong backlash. No one would have saved them, not the police or anyone, so they would have had to cancel or change the mobilization. So he let some leave and sent others to the front. So basically, there's almost no one left inside Ukraine to resist, unfortunately. I mean, the cops aren't going to resist. They don't care about that fop.
I've been shouting about a dictatorship in Ukraine since summer 2022.
I see.
No one really left anywhere. Well, only those who left in the first days, but not really. Someone says something, stirs things up. And how did it all end today? With such a dictatorship that no one could have even suspected, by many criteria, even harsher than Putin's. It's the same here. Believe me, Taras, many people in Ukraine, probably millions, remain who really work as sole proprietors on the single tax system. And they won't do anything either. They'll just either close down like I told you or leave, or they'll earn just enough for bread and a bowl of soup, obediently fulfilling the state's wishes. And there are such people too.
They won't go into politics.
They won't support those driving the resistance. Why don't I care about politics and why don't I like him? And they'll find some other reason. It's all happened before.
And why do you think all this is being done globally, this destruction? Well, I think it's simply destroying small businesses, starting with those Kaza when they first introduced them. I think that most likely Zelensky was almost overthrown back then, but Putin helped him by attacking Ukraine. And so to speak, why are they destroying small businesses at all? What you said earlier about globalism, none of that exists.
They destroy small businesses so that they don't emerge. First of all, I'll tell you again, the consolidation of already large companies which lobby for all this, that's what it's all about. Second, a wealthy person might emerge, not rich but comfortable, someone who needs nothing from the government and asks for nothing. But in Ukraine, such people are not needed. Ukraine doesn't need a creative class. Ukraine needs people obediently taking up arms, going to the front, or else you're done for. That's how everything should be set up in Ukraine. Free people aren't needed, well-off people aren't needed. This is a classic management technique. They need people who are dumb and poor. I just want to say, I don't mean to offend those who went to the front. Let me make that clear right away. I mean, at the start of the war, that was a different story, no question about it. But now, to put it mildly, we don't really see anyone eager to go to the front because people saw everything. That's what I wanted to say, because now I know some idiot will twist my words or something.
But what is there to twist? Look, there's this opinion about all these sole proprietors that globally it's like they didn't even exist. People will remain or they'll go work for some theoretical company like Rosetka. I don't know what big stores there are. They'll go work there, quit, leave, everything will shut down and it'll be simpler. That's what Marchenko was saying. It's easier to administer, so to speak, a big company. It's always easier there. It's easier to collect taxes from them. Roughly speaking, there are 10 big companies. It's easier to check them than 100,000 sole proprietors. And with sole proprietors, not all of them are super successful businessmen. Some open, some close, and so on. So maybe that's the point. What do you think?
Taras, in Ukraine, at least before the war, that's how it was. 90% of taxpayers paid 10% of the taxes, the money that went into the treasury. And 10% of taxpayers paid 90% of the taxes by volume. In absolute numbers, I mean, who are those 10%? State-owned companies that are unprofitable but still pay taxes, and really large private businesses that can afford it. You said it right, big business can handle any taxes, any regulation. They have a crowd of accountants and lawyers. They can withstand anything like that. And influence, including lawmakers. But small and medium businesses, basically small and medium businesses can't do that. So that's why these processes happen. Ukraine has become a club of special interests. So if it's profitable for us, go and lobby for it and let those people either go die at the front or leave the country. We don't need them here.
It's sad, really sad. I was looking, I think sole proprietors pay about 90 billion in taxes. I read some article about it. And as for big business, you're absolutely right. I worked as a lawyer at a very large firm in Ukraine. And really, there are some inspections or certain situations these inspectors come, either they make a deal with them or someone makes a call or somehow else. And if it's the worst case scenario, they go to court and in court they make a deal. Well, in any case, the government doesn't get anything out of it. There's no such system except for some taxes or payments that have to be paid. And for a sole proprietor, as I understand it, when some inspector comes, it's complete ruin. It's those millions they can calculate there. Actually, the same thing will probably happen with VAT. That's really sad. This system, I've dealt with it for years. It used to be simple. You just paid the tax. Then Yulia Vladimirovna came along, may she not be well, and she added the unified social contribution to all of this. That was her doing. Yeah, if anyone noticed, I said, I'm Yulia, I'm good. Where is she? Now they're worried, saying, I was fighting over there. Well, whatever, forget her.
Now there's a war, and they created a military tax during the anti-terrorist operation. But it turns out this tax doesn't go directly to the military. It just goes into the general fund. 1.5%, and now they want to make it 5% on a permanent basis. And the war will end sooner or later. And what is this? Tell me, please. So is this just a ripoff, just feeding this huge state? And they'll say, will you give us money, brother? And I'll say, cut the government bureaucracy and expenses by 70%, review what Argentina did. But no one even thinks like that. But that's our bread. We live off this. What expenses are you talking about reviewing? You're an enemy, a Kremlin agent. That's the kind of conversation it is.
Yes, it's terrible. It kept getting more complicated. I just recall it from my own work. Then they made this, what they came up with, groups of these sole proprietors, started with 3 groups, then made a 4th group, then like you said, they came up with this military tax for sole proprietors, added that too, and now there's also VAT. So just to make all of that happen. Here's a regular person, like when you and I were 20 years old and we wanted to start a business, we wouldn't even be able to approach this because we would need an accountant, someone who understands all this and so on. It's really sad that all of this is actually being destroyed. Unfortunately, that's the point. Why the hell are they doing this? Like you said, why? Well, you basically answered that, so let's move on. About the loans, I wanted to talk about all these IMF things. What do you think? Will they even give this loan now, and what impact will it have on our economy? Yes, they discussed it.
It won't affect anything.
They gave a year and a half. They'll just postpone it.
It will only delay the patient's death. Yes, the money will go to the front. This is war. The question is, what will result? They'll pay social benefits now, but in 6 months, how will they fund them? It's an unprofitable enterprise. Who keeps taking out loans for a losing business? You take one, then another, but things still don't work out. But this is the state. You can milk it forever.
I just don't get how it works at all. They keep borrowing and borrowing, but there's no way out of it. It turns out there's no solution.
See, they're just placeholders. Look at ministers like Halushchenko or the energy guys from Minjeta. They've been around a long time. Their kids study abroad in fancy schools. They have a bunch of real estate. They don't care about Ukraine at all and what will happen there, like you said, later. Ultimately, someone who isn't a true patriot and doesn't plan to live in Ukraine simply doesn't care about it. He said these are just placeholders who come steal. And did you hear that recording of Halushchenko where someone said he was complaining? He's been a minister for 4 years already. He says he needs to get out somewhere as an ambassador. He's stolen so much already that he's thinking he needs to become an ambassador somewhere so he can have a diplomatic passport, some kind of immunity, and to stash abroad what they've stolen. That's their mentality.
It's all very sad, of course. Is there any hope to get rid of all this? Do you personally suggest anything? Is there any at all? Well,
I don't get involved in things that are hopeless. Yes, there is hope, but for that, people need to be active.
Education, no.
Not to go to the US. I see now. Kovalenko Irina, I see your comment, and with your permission, I'll answer why. While being abroad, not... Ukrainians? Should I send requests to the UN, send letters, upload videos? Well, that would be more useful. Everyone is watching, but no one is doing anything. It's hard to do. Irina, you can't access X, which the whole world reads, but you can reach the world's most influential people. So why did I go on air, Irina? For what? And I risked a lot and lost a lot. If not for the sake of protecting myself, first of all, but you too. Our interests coincide. Don't you see that? Which ones? The UN has allowed wars worldwide and won't stop them. It's a powerless organization. You see, Taras, there are a lot of people like Irina who are so dumb. They don't even listen and can't understand what's being explained to them. And that I'm fighting for her rights, among others, at the UN writing letters. Yes, thousands of letters have been written to the UN, tens of thousands, and I regularly post videos, with or without me. Everyone knows what's going on in Ukraine, but it's advantageous for them and for Europe that this is happening. Crazy Zelensky, do whatever you want, steal, dispose of people, but it's beneficial for us today. But Irina doesn't understand that.
No, well, that's a complaint. I thought they didn't write that, but I keep getting it for some reason. Taras, you're a lawyer. Why don't you send requests to NATO, to the UN, I don't know, to the OC, to aliens and whoever else? Everyone has a computer, paper. I often also gladly answer this question. Everyone has a computer, has paper. You don't need anything special to write a letter. Now, to be some kind of great lawyer or attorney, there's artificial intelligence these days, my God. When I started as a lawyer, I couldn't even imagine this. There was barely any internet. People now have many opportunities with search engines. I personally know people, moreover, who aren't even lawyers. They don't even have a degree, but they write complaints against those cops better than any attorney. They sat down, learned it, and figured it out. If someone writes it themselves, I fully support that. In fact, we only support that. And that's actually a plus. Dennis, you said it absolutely right in terms of all this. If they wanted to, they would, but they don't. No one sees people being rounded up into vans here. Dennis, have you ever seen anything like that anywhere? Well, your relatives, I think, like everyone else's, were involved in that war, the Second World War, which is also the Great Patriotic War. Did anyone ever be dragged off like that back then? When or where did that ever happen? Nowhere, never.
Everyone knows. Taras, you understand perfectly well. All these videos, things like that can't be hidden. Is that some kind of secret? Yes, all our social networks are full of this. And, you know, there are also those kinds of commentators. A person like that thinks that if I'm in America, I'll just get on a plane, fly to New York, go to the UN building and drop something in their mailbox. I'll throw in a handwritten letter. That's it.
I'm speaking out.
I'm trying to make them see reason.
You can throw it, but it doesn't do anything. That's the point. If they want to hear you, then nobody wants to listen to you, right? Taras?
It always comes down to whether you like the person or not. If they don't like me, they'll find any reason. Like, don't insult people. Yeah, stupid, stupid. That's a diagnosis, not an insult. If someone writes something stupid, I have to tell them so they can reflect on it. I don't need to tell you you're good people, you idiots. You'll never vote for me, so I don't need to play this game. Let Leshko tell you how wonderful you are.
As our eternal leader Zelensky said, I'm not a new car to be liked by everyone.
Yeah, not a cowboy candy, yeah.
What else did he actually say? I don't remember anymore. Well, basically just some pretty banal comparisons. Yeah, nothing special. But in general, everything is fine. Let's continue with the mobilization. The main thing is, friends, please subscribe to Dennis's channel if you haven't already. I've put up a QR code and the link will be in the description for this video in any case. Go ahead and check it out. Today he will be talking about things. This is why I love talking with Dennis. He shares things that no one else here shows. And no, here we have, you know, some kind of paradigm. They posted some snippet, pulled it out of some Telegram channel from Telegram or from some foreign newspaper. Maybe it wasn't even about that. Some headline, I checked myself and it says something else. They took a screenshot and wrote, Trump this, Trump that.
That's how Ukrainska Pravda works here. Well, those who are controlled by the globalists, the big media, they pull things out of context and twist them around. The editors edited everything the way they wanted, and that's it. The person already perceived the information in their own way.
Tell me, please, I have a very interesting question. What personally would you, the reason I voted for Balashov in the elections and I like his idea, what would you personally see? Is there any way out for Ukraine at all? Well, besides leaving Ukraine forever for some more developed or freer countries, is there any way out at all or not? Just like that, and all of us will be destroyed, and you know that perfectly well.
I'll repeat, I don't take on hopeless causes. If I speak up, try to convince people and make suggestions, it's because I believe in what I'm doing. I have published a reform program, and I believe in the reforms that need to be done. And in general, to start from scratch. Even if many things in Ukraine can no longer be reformed, but everything can be changed. Ukraine is a young country. It's not some kind of corporate giant like America, which has a crazy established system. In Ukraine, everything is different. We can take the best. I haven't invented anything new, and no one has. Everything has already been invented and implemented by successful countries. Just take it from 100 years ago and simply do it in Ukraine. In Ukraine, reforms were never truly started. People just talked about them, but nothing began, and all it amounted to was tightening belts. Remember, I appreciate tightening belts, but not around the neck.
Around the neck, tighten belts?
Very specific things. Reducing the government apparatus, privatizing everything, the lowest taxes, the greatest freedoms for people. This is the foundation. Capitalism, this is the foundation. Without this, nothing will happen.
Honestly, there's one thing I don't understand. I've dealt a lot with law enforcement agencies in my work. Why do they create these additional agencies? For example, before, when I was working, there was the police and the security service of Ukraine. There used to just be the prosecutor's office above them. Now, there are multiple investigation bureaus and new agencies I've never encountered during my time working. Well, some are kind of paramilitary, kind of who knows what. You can't even understand what they are. There's not even a law about them. There's something like the military police, but not actually the military police. There's some kind of military people over the military. Why do you think all this is being done? Why are there so many police and law enforcement agencies in Ukraine?
Regarding the police overall, the number is because a police state is being built. As for these agencies, it's a very good way to funnel money and have a controlled structure for influence. Look, for example, there was no SBI, so they created the SBI, another structure under the president's office that can be used to go after business competitors, political rivals, and personal opponents. It may sound trivial, but it's the plain truth. And to show the West, look, they position the SBI as the FBI.
An equivalent of the FBI?
Honestly, it's funny to even discuss this.
I haven't dealt with the FBI seriously, I don't know, but I have dealt with these guys. It's a questionable organization, just like them, that's all. They only investigate what they want and ignore everything else. Similar to NABU, basically like the police and financial authorities, not the tax police. Some investigations and everyone notices one thing. For some reason, they all investigate economic crimes. That's what they seem to like. The relationship, I almost swore, what the SBU even has to do with Ukraine's economy. What do they even do?
We've talked about this before. It's a basic principle, by the way. But people don't understand that even such simple things, it turns out, need to be explained, that an intelligence agency shouldn't be involved in the economy at all, in principle, but it is involved.
Yes, that three-letter agency should be disbanded entirely. Over the years, it has discredited itself and done nothing useful. If it's the police, I can maybe allow for that somewhere. But these guys, it's just a nightmare. What have they done all this time? They haven't helped anyone, nothing. They've just abused people. And their latest exploits, so to speak, can't even be discussed here because of YouTube's censorship. What they did during the war, I think, is just beyond anything acceptable. The NKVD pales in comparison, I think, with all of this, yes, unfortunately. All right, Dennis, if you still have time, I wanted to ask you, I still wanted it to be, not just these discussions about the US and everything else, but how to actually change things, what needs to be changed. Simply put, in Ukraine, what's your opinion? For Ukraine to at least survive, do you think that's definite? First, look, to survive, Dennis...
Surviving immediately isn't for me. Talking about survival isn't for me either.
It all has to be something great to accomplish.
That I can do.
Now, that's interesting.
She's just getting by. That's what surviving looks like. That's a question for Zelensky when it comes to survival.
Thank you. Yes, he knows how to survive, and the one who was before him too. Yes, definitely, surviving in tough conditions. And we shouldn't forget Sinukanto either. Well, to hell with them, you think basically the first thing is, if you look at it, we need to reduce the government apparatus, right?
Yeah.
Very radically. Don't be offended if I ask something again. I just want people to be able to understand for themselves that there is another way out. Besides, as you said, tightened belts, straps, to take a strap and tighten it around your neck like this and hang yourself somewhere on the rafters. But there is another option, you think. First, it's necessary to specifically reduce this apparatus, right?
Government spending and the number of officials. Well, wait.
But how will Ukraine manage without statistics, without some calculations, without these enterprises and so on?
Counting and statistics are handled by computers, not people, even before AI. In the AI era, nobody needs to do them manually anymore. These people do nothing at work, get a small salary, steal a little, create the appearance of work, and put up obstacles for people and businesses, in life and at work. I'm not exaggerating or joking right now.
I'm recalling from my years of work experience. I remember when there were sole proprietors. Yanukovych came to power and cancelled it. Sole proprietors had to report to 5 organizations, but eventually all that was cancelled. They used to say, and I remember visiting, that these were important organizations, social insurance, unemployment, and accident funds, all later merged into the pension fund. Those organizations were fully disbanded and liquidated. It turned out they worked there. I used to talk to them, and they'd claim Ukraine would die tomorrow without their organizations. I'm not praising Yanukovych, just using him as an example. There are others, Zelensky and Poroshenko. At least Poroshenko did something, but Zelensky hasn't cut anything. Instead, he seems to like expanding the apparatus. So Basically, no one died. It just turned out that people stopped freezing. I remember how it was in winter in January. It's cold in Odessa too, not just in Kyiv, standing outside in the snow. There, you'd stand in line for 6 hours just to hand in some paper, where Aunt Layuba would simply put some stamp on it. And then she'd say to you, "Hey, you there, blah, 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 give me some money," but or something like that, maybe candies. What did they like? But it turns out these organizations, what I mean is, Dennis, sorry if I'm talking too much, is that if you cut down on all these organizations, say something like a Ministry of Sports. Personally, I don't understand why it's needed. Honestly, I watched your videos and I keep thinking, what do they actually do? Honestly, I just can't figure it out.
I, Taras, am a former professional athlete, and I know this topic of sports management very well. I've been deeply involved in it for many years. I want to tell you, the Ministry of Sports isn't needed. I'll tell you how it works. It absolutely doesn't matter who the minister is, it's just a name. There's a clan behind him, and there are billions of hryvnias and an Excel spreadsheet. This goes here, that goes there. And they start coming up with their own contractors and partners, just making things up, just dealing with accounting. It's meaningless. Reforms are needed, but a ministry isn't necessary. A small department would work. America has top sports without a Ministry of Sports. Do you see the point? That's something to think about. You should literally have 23 ministries and all the others should be closed, just like Javier Milei did. In Argentina, it doesn't work any other way. And privatizing the building is just an expense for the state. They claim there's no money, but pensioners only get a 60 euro pension. It's disgraceful and shameful to admit this anywhere. Today, in underdeveloped countries, we're above but below Belarus and Moldova. It's a disgrace for such a country, which has such great potential. That's why, of course, there needs to be a radical reduction, privatization of everything, especially what they call strategic energy, oil, all of that, and first and foremost, the defense industry. The military-industrial complex should be privatized.
But then private businessmen will have control and they'll...
Yes, for example, American corporations, exactly. And it turns out...
we will lose sovereignty. I watched Yulia Vladimirovna. She says there will be a loss of sovereignty, but no one knows what that word means.
And Yulia Vladimirovna needs this in order to control it and make money from it, just like Poroshenko and Zelensky. People forget that when Zelensky became president, there wasn't even a hint of war yet. He used to say what was needed. Lukashenko came to visit, let's hold the Olympics together, and then he said we need national airlines. These are the corrupt money-making schemes. Even a country that isn't the poorest can't host the Olympics because it's a loss-making venture. National airlines are nonsense. Simply because everyone steals here, we have the most corrupt government. We need to separate things from the state, and the private market should be in charge. There will be good airlines and everything else, but the problem is the rules of the game. They put their own people in as regulators who then strangle the competition. It goes on and on. I'm referring to the rules of the game, various laws, and the Constitution itself. I would change it completely. I would take the American one and adapt it for ourselves, just like Japan did. Citizens need freedoms, the right to defend them with weapons, the right to armed uprising, but most of all, freedom of speech. Now I think everyone is convinced that freedom of speech is the foundation of democracy, especially those who have been targeted by the draft office or are staying home, afraid of the draft office. No one can say a word. You know, there was this guy, did you see that video? The guy, well, honestly, kind of a fool with some pastry.
Yeah, the one walking around with the pastry.
He was dodging those draft officers. Well, it was kind of nice to watch, like at least someone was doing something, but then there was a second video. Did you see two black eyes? I apologize. You see, that's how it all works. He lacked the sense to realize it would happen to him regardless. In Ukraine, it continues, hence the dictatorship.
But who catches them? I can't understand. Who catches them? It's the SBU that catches them. Yes, of course. I said that the SBU is unnecessary. What they do during the war, it's not clear what they're doing. Tell me, please. So are there any examples? I'm just curious to understand for myself of any such success, change, and so on. You mentioned the president of Argentina. Is he succeeding at anything or not?
Argentina is the most recent example. GDP growth of 4% last year, a reduction in the number of poor people. I could list his achievements for hours.
America has achieved success.
That's exactly what I'm telling you.
Tell me, it's interesting. No one really understands, right? Well,
people don't get numbers, like how inflation was in the tens of thousands.
Can you say it was 10%, then became 100%, or the other way around?
For example, GDP, that's already quite a lot. Argentina's GDP, 4% a leader in their region. That's already a lot. Closing ministries, firing 100,000 officials, cutting regulations, putting things up for privatization. Now they're planning to build 4,000 kilometers of private roads. No one in the world has done that yet. That's how things should be done in Ukraine. but even more aggressively and radically, since our situation is a mess. They at least had a base to work from, and 600 billion euros in GDP while we're poor.
And him, Milei, what is he being accused of? Also corruption, something about his sister. I watched some programs saying they're stealing money there. Is that true?
That's being spread by pro-Russian media, those kinds of narratives.
No, I'm actually on the side of foreign media. This has nothing to do with Russia at all. Well, I'm telling you.
I see the trends and know their source.
Who comes after that? This has nothing to do with Russia at all. It's not from there. I was just watching some program about this topic related to the economy. Is there some question? Read it out. No, what are you looking at? Maybe there's some question. I'm just not looking at the chat. I can't see what they're writing there. If, as they say, there are smart questions, then write them, Dennis. If you sometimes catch them there, you answer right. So look, but in general, if we sum it up, so to speak, about the European Union, because what my acquaintance told me, he lives in Germany, he basically wanted to register as self-employed. How to put it? He has his own websites and he gets income from them. That's the point. Just like on YouTube, you get paid for views. It's the same with websites. And he earns something like 5,000 euros, not astronomical money per month, maybe less, something in that range. And he said he wanted to do it, but he couldn't manage to do it. Because there's some kind of twisted system there, because we say ours is twisted. No, over there, it's even more so. What you said about sole proprietors, that it's correct and clear, it's the same here. He said that the system is really twisted completely. Everything is turned upside down like that. He even wanted to do it, but he can't do it officially because there are some complicated procedures that you just can't get around. And accordingly, that's my opinion. In general, I looked at the European Union, like the Soviet Union, the European Union. There's something there, some main center, and it tells them what to do. And then in the countries that are simpler, for some reason, they decide to cull some animals because there was no cottage cheese there. So they buy cottage cheese from Poland, but they don't take it to another country like, say, Hungary, because there's some kind of division. Well, it reeks of absurdity, considering that they even elect some kind of president in all those countries. So as for me, it's not really viable at all. Do you think it could change in that direction, more like what Donald Trump wants, libertarianism or something, some kind of freedom, so that, let's say, a person pays about 10%, roughly speaking, and that's it, and they're not harassed anymore? You have to get permission just to make a couple of cents from YouTube.
Are you talking about Europe right now?
Yes, about Europe. I got a little sidetracked.
That's impossible under Ursula. What you're describing is absolutely right. You see, that's what Europe's wealth was built on, entrepreneurial freedom. But now it's over-regulated, excessively regulated. And you know what's the scariest part? It's aimed at things like not being able to withdraw $2,000 from the bank. Well, for example, or even $5,000.
In short,
you have to report every 1,000. But when it comes to big capital, all the doors are open for you. Well, up to a certain point, it's all anti. If the word is success, this is about anti-success. It all needs to be changed at the root. You understand? And ours want to go there into that madness, even more madness than we have. At least here you can somehow get around it, but there you can't, like you said.
My friend lives and shoots videos in Spain, and he says there's some kind of idiocy there. They introduced a rule there that if it's 1,000 euros, you can't withdraw it, and if there's some kind of fine, it's just complete absurdity. Even though, excuse me, I don't know who actually goes to Spain, why people go there to live. Some damn foreigners come and settle around you, and that's it. Well, everyone has heard about Cuba, I think. I mean, that's their great country. And the police just stand there and, well, say you're somewhere. A friend of mine told me, if you take out your mobile phone like this on the road, they fine you. The police drive up and fine you. Or if you're driving somewhere, a police helicopter, I don't know if they have this in the US or not, flies over the road and monitors your speed. They came up with the idea of a police helicopter flying over the road to monitor speed and send fines.
They don't have this in America, Taras. In all of Europe, for example, in old Europe, there's just a small tourist area, but you can't park anywhere. There are stop signs everywhere. You can't drive in anywhere. And there are cameras everywhere that fine you immediately. It's just crazy. People need to be given some freedom. They're just exploiting old money, old success now, but that's already come to an end. In Germany, look, the economy is stagnating at a crazy pace, and that's where they make BMW and Mercedes. Just take those brands, for example.
So they're still hanging on thanks to these brands and their legacy, succeeding through second-hand assets in Italian fashion, even the pricey ones.
But all of it was created under different circumstances. Back when it all started, the conditions were completely different, and then things kept getting stricter and stricter. Today, starting a small business in Europe and growing it to even a medium size, let alone a large one, is an impossible task. That's why China has artificial intelligence, America has it, but Europe doesn't. It couldn't have started there because you would have been shut down right at the beginning, with taxes, regulations, and everything else.
So is it better with taxes in the US in this regard? No, in the US, of course.
It's the freest economy.
Well, in the US, I agree. They came up with some really cool things, starting with people like Bill Gates and others like him. That's all, of course, in the US.
You can't interfere with money, sending it, receiving it, withdrawing it. You can't forbid money from moving. But that's exactly what's being forbidden in Ukraine. They've basically banned people from using their own money.
Well, there you go.
Well, there you go.
Even in Europe, they have a slightly higher amount there. Well, actually, yes, I agree. In the US, a lot of people get these benefits, even the same ones. Take our phones, for example. I just don't have an iPhone. I don't use them, but who invented the iPhone? Oh, Lord, what's the name of the late creator of the iPhone? He basically made all the phones in the world look like this. It was the US that invented it. He was the one who came up with the screen.
And everyone said it was impossible. It's the same with Ukraine. They say Ukraine can't succeed and so on. And we used to say the same thing. But now we all use these phones.
Well, there was a foundation for it in the US.
There's a foundation here too. You just need to change the way people think and choose different people for the government. Wow, a foundation, a huge country in the center of Europe.
Thank you. Well, it's like this. Who's in charge? There are small countries like Monaco. What's in Monaco? Nothing. 2 hotels and mountains. I haven't been there, honestly, but you know what's there.
But here you have financial monitoring, and just like in Dubai, now Zelensky's money men are buying everything up, and in Dubai, real estate. Why isn't there financial monitoring? But in Ukraine, you have to do it so that you report even 1,000 hryvnias, like you said. Since 96, the money you earned, you have to report where you got it from. But in Dubai, any dirty money in the account, no problem, let's sell, that's how you need to work.
Well, it's the same in Turkey too. As far as I know, there's no monitoring if you buy something for yourself.
That's why, Turkey is not an EU member yet. As soon as they join, they really want to, yes.
I don't think they'll join or be accepted.
They're not being accepted yet.
They won't be accepted. That's just how it is. Yes, of course, you think basically that the situation might still change and there is hope for us. Yes, we just need to change things, move away from all this and reduce this bureaucracy. And I'm sorry for repeating myself, it's just that many people don't really understand what it means for something to be gone. I remember Poroshenko, whether we like him or not too. He reduced the tax service there. Before there was a tax police and a tax inspection in every district, but then he cut them down and made just one regional office. There were some service centers and that's it. And nobody died. By the way, both Yanukovych and Poroshenko at least tried to cut something for whatever reasons, I don't know.
I disagree. Under Poroshenko, they began adopting European standards and financial monitoring and started blocking accounts.
They started with the presidential ones, not others.
Under Poroshenko, I remember it like it was yesterday.
He passed the law in 2019. Zelensky came and passed some stupid law about this financial monitoring.
That was already the next step. The beginning had been made. Before that, they used to transfer money to personal accounts. Remember there?
Whatever you want, unlike today.
Yuzanin was doing this quietly. I won't argue quietly. But the processes started under them. But it's not because of that. They all wanted the European Union. All of this has to be synchronized with European legislation. The question is, why the hell do we need to join the European Union?
I watched a video about Georgia. It's fine there. You can actually pay just 1%. And I saw Batumi or whatever it's called. It's not worse than Dubai, in my opinion.
Economic freedom is always a plus.
I'm not sure where they got the money. They mention investments, possibly from Dubai, I think. But that's not the point, because they refused to join the European Union. And what about the people? Many, I'm sure, are watching us. They live in the European Union. So what's good about it?
You say Georgia refused to join the European Union. While they weren't accepted, it's also true Georgia is poor and people are leaving. And now, if you didn't know,
poor.
Literally poor. I have some very close friends from there. It's a poor country. People live on $100 a month and are fleeing from there. Only the elderly stay.
This likely increased due to newcomers from Russia and Ukraine.
It was profitable. Investments came in, but these are fixed investments. tourist routes, tourist investments like hotels, casinos. I think they have things like that there.
So that's not ideal either. It turns out
Every country is a separate case, but the basic principles are the same everywhere. If money can profit from it, it goes there in one form or another. If it's not profitable, it doesn't go there. In Georgia, money did go there in the form of infrastructure projects, but it doesn't go to Ukraine.
well, there's a war in Ukraine. Where would you even go?
Even before the war, few people went there. I know the numbers.
All right. Thank you very much, Dennis. Once again, dear friends, I suggest you subscribe. The link to Dennis's channel will be in the description. There will be an interesting stream today as well. I've also put up a QR code with his channel, so go ahead, check it out, and subscribe. A lot of interesting things. Thank you very much, Dennis. It even went on for about an hour and a half. I see. Sorry if it took too long, but there was a lot to discuss, and the topics were interesting.
Thank you to Terras. Thank you to the haters. I had a laugh. My friends will have a laugh too about what a bad businessman I am and just a scoundrel, and that all the bad stuff is in me. Even though you don't like me, you still watch this stream for 90 minutes and listen to it all.
That's all. Thank you very much. I'll turn it off for now then.
Taras.